Welcome back. It's the Marketer of the Day podcast. Shreya, Banerjee, and Paul Counts are here. Me and Paul go so far back. I don't even know what year, what decade I first came across him, but both of them, Shreya and Paul, they're co-founders of marketingcounts.com. They are serial entrepreneurs, advisors to influencers. Their methods and strategies generate well over $100 million for their clients, customers, and businesses. And they are passionate about helping you grasp some of these proven marketing concepts. We're talking about leads, traffic, sales, getting those ad costs down, getting the organic traffic, getting traffic from multiple sources. They have an amazing podcast called the Marketing Counts Podcast. They have an Amazon series, they have online courses, and they are here to tell us what we're missing out on. Some of them might be simple, obvious. Some of them might be like, oh my gosh, I have to go and implement this right away. They partner with Russell Brunson with plrfunnels.com. So we have a lot to talk about, but we'll have a lot of fun. Here's some stories. So Shreya and Paul, glad to be speaking with you.
So glad to be here.
Hey, great to be here. Great to see you again, Robert.
Yeah, and we were just saying before the recording that it's always great to catch up and get the blend of the old and the new. And because like so many times you come across someone and like they pretend like they invented something. I'm like, hey, that's resale rights. That's PLR. That's
Yes.
That's a lead funnel. That was invented 30 years ago. But then there's a reason why these things have stood the test of time, right? It's like when they say, well, why are the pyramids still there? Well, because everything else that was built differently has kind of fallen, to the wayside. But some of these things, right, sales letters and retargeting and abandoned cart and all these kind of things that have stood the test of time that just taken new forms, they're what we're always missing out on, right? The fundamentals. We need more attention on that. And so, what should we talk about as far as what are you guys focused on, passionate about? What's the jumping off point in a conversation?
Yeah. Can I start real quick?
Go ahead.
My current favorite, because you said it always comes back. My current favorite is SEO is brand new.
Yes.
For social posts, because that's, everyone's becoming a guru on that right now. And I find that hilarious because it's been there forever.
Yeah, right. That's the biggest thing I'm seeing right now is people are saying, because, a lot of people don't realize like this Gen Z audience, like over 60% of them have now selected basically Instagram and TikTok as their search engine of choice. Like they're not using Google. And so like TikTok, Instagram really, pushed into this by not making hashtags be the only way to find people. Hashtags still work, but they're also, if you put relevant copy and relevant content, just like you would optimize an article, you would see it. But what's really funny, like Shreya was saying, is we're seeing all these gurus coming out and going like, oh, there's this new thing I think it's called SEO. Like they literally said that and people are like, wow, this is amazing. And it's like, dude, this has been around since early 2000s. Like you guys this is not new. And I'm finding now more than ever, what was old is working extremely well. We'll talk about one of those here in a bit too, that we're finding that is amazing. One of the old methods that has come full circle all the way back.
Well, and just to get people caught up on this whole idea of SEO is like people are they're doing search phrases, right?
Yeah.
They're like looking for solutions to their problem. And then there's like the wherever you rank on that. And there's a little bit of trickery of it as well, isn't there? Because if someone searches a certain phrase and they go and they watch a TikTok and they watch it most of the way or all the way through, that's like a click, so to speak. And then the algorithm says, hey, we're going to bump that up in the rankings. And then there's even more trickery of like, I know sometimes, especially on these social networks or on like even YouTube, I'll search a phrase and then a day or two later, I'll see that in my main feed as if I searched it again, because it's saying like, hey, this dude searched for PLR rights. They searched for ClickFunnels marketing agency. And then days later, it's like, we're going to show you more of that. And it's like, there's this cool disconnect, like, oh my gosh, it's reading my mind. Well, no, it's just looking at what you did 2 days ago and forgot. And so tell us about what we should know about the old and the new with SEO. What's this cool technique that you hinted?
Yeah. So here's the part that is still relevant for SEO. It is you're connecting people that have a need and a desire for something. So just like you said, if somebody's looking for how to get rid of back pain, how to train a dog, how to, improve your golf swing, whatever, and they type that into the search, and a lot of people don't realize Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all those are search engines too, just like Google is itself. And as long as you bring up a relevant result, that means you use common sense and name your video what those keywords are, you have a chance of ranking. And then you put those keywords in the comments. And that's like always been there for SEO. Like that's like SEO 101. And so that's kind of one of the things that's still around. And then the part we hinted at that's really happening is, you remember online forums, right? And how we used to use those to generate traffic way back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Bulletin, anybody?
It's back. Just like the bell-bottom jeans, it's back.
Yeah, it's back. Forums are back. So Google, in an attempt to basically attack AI, because Google's just anti-AI, they just got rid of about 2% of their webs. It was a huge amount. I mean, 2% is a lot of websites. It just got axed from Google. And they're continually downranking websites that are using AI content because they want human generated content. And so Google went out and they licensed content from Quora and Reddit. They spent $100 million. So I don't know if you've noticed lately, when you do searches on Google for almost any how-to topic, you actually see forum listings show up, and they actually call them forum listings. They're even feeding in from, I saw a constant contact forum showing up for marketing. They're pulling in forums into the first page of Google. And so what we've started to do is go in and leave comments on those forums with a nice, well-placed profile link like we used to do back in the day. And so in literally minutes, you can rank on the first page of Google and get eyeballs and traffic by utilizing that strategy. But you have to add value in your forum post.
Right.
You can't go use AI to make it. But Google's loving this because forums generate human-generated content. So Reddit and Quora are like getting so much traffic now. And a lot of people, I think, have discredited those because they're onto the new thing. And I'm like, no, the forums are back. It just has different names.
Right. And I feel like people always jump for the easy button, push button solution. And every time we run for that, for example, AI, you do get axed at some point. But if you follow the same basic principles, even though it might take you a little bit, you're going to stay there. You're going to see the value for much longer. And no one is doing that. So even if you do a little bit, which we did it for one of our trainings, our stuff is there. We're starting to see traffic for it, even because no one else is doing it. Everybody's going the AI route. So by being yourself and authentic, you're standing out, which is really funny because people always want to do something extra to stand out, right? But you don't have to.
Yeah, and why not just put in the effort in a different way, right? Instead of, you don't necessarily have to do like 10x the work, just like be helpful and solve these problems. And like one of the very, very first things that I learned or started to do, like I'm talking about like year 2000, was they said make 10 forum posts a day. Back when like you said, there's the V-Bulletin and all these different websites, you register an account, and they said just make 10 posts a day. And before you know it, you're at like 2,000, 3,000 posts. And then you have these signature lines, and then you keep showing up when there's these certain topics. And all three of us, right? We've gotten sales over the years just from making those forum posts, but then you didn't know which one was going to do it. So it's worth it to just make the habit. And then it seems like there was that period of time then when like social media kind of took over. And then after a while, the Facebook groups took over, and then the Reddit and the Quora. So now it's like the search engines are like, hey, what happened to all these juicy, delicious forums in our search results? Now we want some of that back. So it always seems to be like, find where the gap is, right? Find like however the search wars are doing, who's trying to make a move, and then go and help them out. So jump in on the Quoras. And so what do you have to say as far as like these habits nowadays? Like, are you still big on like spend an hour a day or 10 posts a day, or like how much activity do you think is needed to get that balance of like, well, I want to get results, but I don't want to waste all day on this?
Yeah. I would say it's about, spend about an hour a day doing intentional forum posts and comment. Like we're talking Quora, we're talking especially Quora and Reddit. Google spent $100 million for those to show up on the first page. And you can not only can you get traffic from like just commenting on the posts that are on the first page of Google, but you can also get traffic from inside there, because people forget those sites have hundreds of millions of users on them. And literally like the entrepreneur thread has 1.5 million people in there. The homeschooling thread has 1 million. Like we have a client in the homeschool niche, so I was checking it out for them. Over 2 million people in that one. There's the fitness group has 5 million people. Like you can go in and add value. If you're in those niche markets, go in and respond to people. And the other thing we find is by doing this, we learn what our market wants. So then we can go out to YouTube and Google, and now we know exactly what videos to make, because we can like see similar questions that keep popping up. And what people forget too is that with Reddit and Quora both, they actually have a post feature on your profile. So you can remember Squidoo and Hub Pages those days way back when. this is like that, but on steroids. So it's back.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
actually, the reason
great
it's
opportunity.
back is because Google's trusting user generated content and
Yeah.
user regulated content. Because the second you post some AI thing on Reddit, you're going to be kicked out of that subreddit.
Yep.
So, because people understand what AI is and not. So, Google has finally said, I'm not going to try to figure it out. I'm going to let you guys figure it out and give me the valuable content. And that's why you see this big rise of forums again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's huge. And I think that's a good insight that if someone isn't around the AI every day, they might be fooled with it. But people like us, like, I mean, I open up Reddit when I'm bored, right? I'm like, well, I could scroll Facebook, and I'd rather read Reddit and like get some insights, learn some stuff. And when you're just like always reading, like you have that human detector. And if suddenly someone is talking about if this is crucial, or if they're giving like this bulleted list, or they're like using these certain keywords, like if they're talking about like fostering a connection, I'm like, people don't talk like that. And so that's a good insight. But whenever AI comes up, there's this idea of like using it as your buddy, right? And if say there's a question, you paste it in, you get some ideas. Do you still both do that? Do you say like, well, hey, I'm not going to use AI to write it, but like I'll say, hey, maybe it can fill in the gaps of what my answer would be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Coming up with the initial content. Just back in the day, we used to have like encyclopedias, or when you would go to the library to get the basic stuff, right? But then you would rewrite it for your paper or for your assignment. It's the same thing where you're now using AI to kind of get that basic information to come up with ideas, come up with like maybe the basic content, but then you're rewriting it, you're doing it and putting it in your own words.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Yeah, put it in your own words. Like use it. So this is why it's funny, because everybody's going off about AI and all this, and I remember the article spinner days. I remember the days that which just AI, but just not that smart. But like people would put out websites with these, and it worked for them for a very short time, and then Google caught on, and like those websites were gone. And so there's always people trying the new, latest, greatest hacks. The problem with what people have done with AI, though, is they're just copying and pasting straight from ChatGPT and like, oh, I'm done. I'm like, that's not how it's done, though. Like, you have to still put your own human ideas into this. Google came out with this formula. They call it the EAT formula. So it's experience. And they've had this for a while, right? So they have expertise, authority, and trust was always like their thing. And then they added a separate E because they decided they didn't want to spell right. So they put in a separate E in there for experience. And that experience means like they want to rank articles that have experience in it. And they launched this right around the AI movement in December of 2023. And they were like saying, nope, we're done with, this AI stuff. Like we want to have real human experiences infiltrate our articles. And so they are looking for case studies. They're looking for testimonials. They're looking for actual experience. From my experience, having a business for 20 years, this is what I've learned. Or from my experience, struggling with back pain, this is what I learned. Because they learned AI can't really have experiences. And so Google added that to their formula for ranking. So it doesn't mean you can't take AI to like give you the foundation, but then you have to infiltrate your own stories, your own experiences. And I mean, and as we all know, all of us here, good copy comes from storytelling still, like AI is not going to connect with your readers. I write my own emails and I love it, and that's why they still connect with my audience. If I had AI write it, it wouldn't connect. And so you still have to give that human touch. People are craving human, interaction more than ever. And so it's very important. And, so I think that's always going to rise to the top no matter what.
100%. And it's like, it seems like the EEAT came about like when AI was new and the pandemic was new. And there was the people were saying like, oh, well, should you inject bleach or should you drink this horse medicine? And Google was like, well, hey, if someone posts that, that's fine. But then if it's like a medical doctor's posting it and it's linked to all these other things and they have these publications, then we'll kind of put that higher on the top of the heap. And so it's kind of like their long-term AI killer, right? That instead of it being an arms race, it's like, well, you can invent whatever, but then if it has this name attached to it, and if this name has the spider web of all these other credentials in place, then that will be more superior. And it seems like whenever traffic is explained, that's what it's all about, right? They're like, well, have your focus on a handful of networks, but have it all work together. And the three of us love to talk about the nostalgia, and there's like the Matt Basak, like the A9 thing or whatever, where he's like, here's your content, but you post it to all these places, right?
Yes.
You post it to the Squid Do and the Twitter and the Reddit and all these things. And so you're giving us kind of some tasks here, right? We need to be focusing on Reddit somewhat and on Quora somewhat, and try to see like how can we be going in there on a recurring basis, fill in as much of our profile as we can, but otherwise just add to the discussion, give some helpful answers. What other ingredients go in the soup? If someone says, well, I need to have more consistent organic traffic, what method should they be pursuing?
Right. So social organic is really big right now. And we talked about Quora and stuff, but also on Instagram, TikTok, people are using those as Google. Like we use Google to search for things, you know? So when you're posting there, engagement's very important. Like posting is one thing, but mindful engagement within those platforms is very important. So taking 10 minutes of a time in a day and engaging with other people, liking, commenting, messaging, very, very important to do per platform.
Right. When you're on there, I mean, and that's a few minutes per day to do that. But, the thing about it is that social media is social, right? And I think a lot of people forget that. They're like, this is just my media platform to share my ideas. And they forget the social part of it. And every one of these social media sites, they are like, even LinkedIn, they have this thing called the SSI score, which is how they rank you and, how you look good to them. And part of that is, are you engaging with other users and are you interacting with other users? 25% of LinkedIn's algorithm is based on that alone. And so many people just forget that. They're like, oh, I'm posting this out there. The world wants to hear from me only. And they forget the fact that you should just intentional engagement, go out there and interact with people and don't just like it. Likes are weak, like you see posts that have 100 likes, but 3 comments. Go in there and make that comment. Don't use
There's
AI
actually
to make the comment,
a formula for your score, right? And comments are worth more than likes.
Yeah, comments are worth a lot more when they talk about engagement. They want you to actually comment on people. And a lot of it, you have to look at it from all these platforms. They all have the same idea. They want to keep you on their platform. And so if you are somebody that's engaging or you're creating engaging comments and content, it's going to keep people there longer. They're going to reward you for that overall. Not to mention, if you leave a really good comment on a high profile post, just like the forums do, they come back full circle to your profile. It happens to me all the time. And that stuff has been around for years, right? This goes back to what we talked about earlier, Robert, like leaving forum comments. It's no different than going out to x.com, formerly Twitter, going out to, I can't, so that one drives me nuts. Going out to Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and like, leaving good comments, then they're going to enter back to your profile, where your link is, so you just have to add value on these platforms and be consistent. What worked 20 years ago still is working today. It's just different platforms. That's all.
Right. It's link building in a way, right? And whenever the topic of link building comes up, it can get kind of daunting because you think like, oh, well, do I need to contact like Inc. magazine or Forbes and do a guest blog proposal? Yeah. But then to do it in like a more like achievable, consistent micro way, just keep posting the comments. And so that leads to thinking like, okay, well, what's the time management of this sort of thing like? Like, because like, I mean, maybe personally, like I very slowly embraced outsourcing and delegating and having a team. And sometimes I have people like kind of keep my LinkedIn warm and they go and they leave some of the likes in the comments, but then I'm also in there kind of doing like the higher level comments. And so do you recommend that, like kind of like the partial outsourcing? Do you have like a calendar at certain times a day to make sure you're consistent? How can somebody make sure that they stick to this habit?
Well, that's a good one. Outsourcing is good. For me, it's, you just set up that time. Like, so I've just kind of set myself like every day. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this on LinkedIn. And, so this might be my LinkedIn day or today's my Reddit day or, so I don't try to do them all at once because otherwise you'd go nuts because there's so many social platforms. But it depends on, it's really just setting aside that time and making an intentional part of your day. That's what it is. Sometimes for me, usually it's around 3 or 4 o'clock for me. And it's when I'm relaxing after all meetings, Zooms, podcast, whatever, and I'm literally laying on the couch doing all this from my phone. Like that's when I'm like, okay, this is my relaxed time, and I find it relaxing because I'm like, well, I'm getting traffic at the same time, but I get to actually interact and comment. So so I've kind of set that time each day that I have that, and we have outsourced quite a bit in our business. Shreya is really good on that because I was very slow to adapt outsourcing, and she's been pushing me to do that more and more. So I do agree with you. I think having the outsourcing on some of the basic stuff is really good. But it's still like you still have to give that high level engagement, or else people just, it's not gonna, it'll
Right.
fall flat, right? So
Now, as far as schedule goes, though, you have to do what works for you
right,
because consistency is key. And I know a lot of people that said this rigid schedule and then you can't follow up with it because you're not consistent with it, right? So, whatever works for you, if that means that when you go to the bathroom and you're scrolling on TikTok, rather
hey,
than
there
scrolling on TikTok, you're
you said
engaging
it.
with people, that works if that's what works for you. If you're the type of person who's very structured and need to schedule that 10-minute time on your calendar, that works for you. So you gotta do what works for you, but
Yep.
make sure you carve that time out. Like Paul likes to relax and do it on his couch because he enjoys it. Works for him, right?
Yeah.
So whatever works for you, because consistency is key. Doesn't matter which platform you're doing it on.
Right. And that whole advice of do what works for you, I used to discount that because I used to think that was like a cop out. Like, oh, well, I'm not going to answer your question, do what works for you. But then now, like every, few years, I try some other schedule. And I think the big aha with that was like the podcasting we're doing here right now, right? You put aside 20, 30 minutes, show up to an appointment. It is kind of a hassle, right? You gotta put on clothes, got to turn on the
Yeah.
lights. But then I had a friend who was like, no matter what you do, don't do one a day, like block them all out in one day. And then I tried that and I hated it. And doing like one or two a day, I was like, I can do this. This is easy. So I think you're so right that there is like different kind of work ethics, motivations, personality types. And there probably is like a discomfort period of setting the new habit, right? If you're
Right.
transitioning from just scrolling through X and doing nothing to like, okay, I'm still gonna be when I go to the bathroom, I guess I'll still do that, but I'll transition over to TikTok. You give it a shot for a few weeks, see how the schedule works for you,
Yeah.
and then just go through there. And I like the kind of the insight there of don't try to do like TikTok at 9 a.m. and X at 10 a.m. like separate it through the different days, but then also be consistent with it. And then also like if that can be your winding down, then great. Like one of the very first books I read as a kid was Tom Sawyer, where the kid's like he's painting a fence white and he doesn't want to do it, and he tells his friend like, hey, what's really fun is painting this fence, and his friends does it instead, and he like thinks it's fun, and it's like that's one person's pain is another person's pleasure. And so this is great to think about, but I want to make sure in these last few minutes that we have a focus on these other services that you do. And if someone has a problem, if no one else can help, instead of hiring the A-team, you hire you guys, who is even better than the A-team as far as I'm concerned. But what is the problem that you guys solve, and how do you stand out?
Yeah, the biggest problem is we help people reduce ad spend and increase their profits. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Right now, ad spends are going crazy high, and they're so variable. I mean, if you have an election year, they're higher. If you don't have an election year, they could be higher for other reasons, because literally what people forget about, especially small businesses, 99.9% of businesses out there, you're competing against companies with billion-dollar ad spends. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, let's just be honest. And Google and Facebook and all these platforms are going to cater to them. And also those platforms, they don't care. They just have to run traffic. They have to hit their numbers because it's in their budget. So they don't really focus on conversions. We've worked with publicly traded brands that are billion-dollar companies, and we've witnessed it, and it's shocking. And they can't believe that we can make a page convert higher. Like it blows their mind that we are happy that we can get a page that was converted 2% to convert at 30%. That blows their mind. Like they can't even fathom that, because that's how their mindset is, right? And so one of the things we do with clients is we come in and typically we cut ad spend dramatically. People think we're nuts. They come in and are like, what are you doing? There goes my traffic source. I'm like, no, just wait, give it 2-3 months. You'll be fine. And then they're fine with it after, because they realize like, oh, I didn't need to be spending all this money, because most of the time they're spending wasted traffic, right? So our philosophy is FTE, foundation, traffic, engagement. So you have to fix the foundation, and you have to do the unsexy stuff like optimize your title, optimize the headline, optimize the sub headline, optimize the images, make sure your pages converts, make sure you're capturing leads on that page, make sure you're not sending people to a dead offer. Like a lot of businesses, you go to their website, especially small businesses, it says welcome to our website. I'm like, well, that doesn't do any good. Like nobody wants to do business with you. So, we go back to the basics. We go through customer avatar templates to make sure they know who is your target audience and what are you trying to reach them with. That's what we do. We pull back the curtains and go back to the basics, and they think we're insane at first, but then it really helps their business, because now once you know your avatar, every time you go leave a comment on Quora, on Reddit, on all these social media platforms, you now know who your exact target market is. So it's easier for you to focus and dial that in. And so that's one of the core things we focus on, is helping people fix their messaging and fix their foundation, so that when you run traffic, you're not wasting that traffic now. And also you don't have to spend as much traffic to get the same results. We're optimizing your business so that you can have a business you're in more control of.
I love it. And that's so huge. Just this idea of going back to the basics. Like, I think it's like John Wooden, or there's some basketball coach where, like, the beginning of every season, he's like, hey, this is a basketball. This is what dribbling is. Yes. And it seems silly, but like, so few of us do that in business, going back and saying, like, hey, you know that splash page that you put up there 5 years ago and you last updated the headline 4 years ago? Does that really match up with when there's the post on Quora and someone clicks on your profile and goes to your website and they opt in for the lead magnet and they get the emails and they see the offer? Does all that match up, or is it like a hodgepodge of things, or do you cringe when you look at, well, like, I set that up years ago and forgot about it? I mean, we're all guilty of that. And it can definitely help to have that outside team looking in, because if you're so close to it, you've gotten so used to it, you have, I know there's ad blindness, but there's got to be like self website blindness as well, just because you've been around it for so long. And 100%. So what are some next steps here? Like, there's marketingcounts.com, there's plrfunnels.com. If someone says, man, I've gotten some good ideas and I've gotten like a little bit of help as far as like what my problem is, what I should do, but a podcast only gives us a taste. So as far as going to some websites, contacting you, getting help from the source, where should someone go?
Yeah, the easiest thing, you can email us, support@marketingcounts.com. We get that email directly. You know, you can ask us any questions and we can see if we're a good fit. That's probably the easiest way. And then marketingcounts.com will have everything you need as well. So
very cool. So marketingcounts.com and support@marketingcounts.com. And as we're headed there, I like to try to stand out in the podcasting world. And instead of just saying, bye, go to the website, see you later, I like to try to stump my guests a little bit and ask them for a fun quote or lesson that, see, Paul's already rubbing his hands. I asked for a fun quote or lesson that has helped you in all your years of experience that you can pass on and help us. So what comes to mind? Maybe both of you, fun quote or lesson.
All right. You want me to go?
Me? Okay. This has stuck with me for a long, long time. It's from Magic School Bus, of all things. Is Miss Frizzle saying, take chances, make mistakes.
I love it. And what does Paul have?
I got Pete Maravich, basketball player. Love never fails, character never quits, and with patience and persistence, dreams do come true. And that's probably the biggest one for me. Persistence and patience. Like, having a business, it can take patience. Everybody wants the fast route to success. Everybody wants the easy button. That's why, you know, I've been in this business 26 years. I started at 13. I'm still here because I've been patient and persistent. And I know people that followed the easy button that are no longer here. So you can't just follow the trends, right? Like, Robert, you've been here for about as long as I've been here, I think. So, and that's because you haven't followed the trends, right? You've stayed consistent and steady and patient. And, you know, it could be easy to jump to the bright, shiny objects at times and all those things. And so I don't know, persistence and patience are probably the two biggest reasons businesses succeed.
I love it. Don't always go the path of least resistance. And even like merging it back with Shreya's message there is that it's like, it's all about these different experiments, right? And these different kind of like activities and projects and milestones. And that way you don't have to just throw out your business every time you try something new. If you try the Reddit and the Quora traffic sources, you try replacing the paid ads, you try making over the website, it's like you just do these little experiments. So that way you kind of keep your core there. But then if something is promising, or if some other traffic source is blowing up, you're like, hey, well, this is adding to my business, but I'm also not remaining stagnant. So there's some very powerful ideas we discussed. So that email was support@marketingcounts.com. And the website is marketingcounts.com. So go there right now. You'll be glad you did, because if you got some traffic ideas just from this conversation, imagine what you'll get going to that website, sending that email, having that conversation, getting people actually looking at your website and showing you what's possible. You're going to be completely amazed and get your business to that next level. So super wonderful catching up with both of you and having this fun conversation.
Oh, this was a blast. Thank you, Robert.